There's a huge new law that's about to make some serious waves in the U.S. housing market, and it's packed with new rules that are going to affect just about everyone, from our military veterans to folks trying to buy their first home. So today, we're going to break down the biggest changes and really get into what this all means for the future of housing in America.
So how do you even begin to fix something as massive and complicated as the housing market? It's a huge question, right? Well, this new law is giving it a shot. And it's not trying to be some single magic solution. Instead, it's taking this really interesting multi-layered approach. It's all about helping specific groups, demanding more answers from the people in charge, and honestly just planning for a better future.
Okay, so here's how we're going to break it all down. First up, we'll look at what's changing for our vets. Then, we'll get into a whole new era of government oversight. After that, we're tackling the sometimes tricky world of home appraisals. And to wrap it all up, we'll see how this law is trying to get ahead of tomorrow's problems. All right, let's dive right into Section 1. This is all about our military veterans. Making sure that the people who've served our country can actually get the housing benefits they've absolutely earned. Okay, now this might look like a tiny change, but trust me, the impact could be massive. Before, a standard loan application just had a simple checkbox, right? Have you served in the military? Now look at the after. It's required to have this little disclaimer right underneath that question. It basically says, hey, if you checked yes, you might qualify for a VA home loan. You should talk to your lender. It's such a simple nudge, but it could literally be the thing that gets a vet a way better loan they didn't even know existed. And here's another really important rule. This one focused on making housing more accessible for our disabled vets. So, for a bunch of federal housing programs, any disability benefits a veteran receives from the VA will no longer count as income when they're figuring out eligibility. I mean, think about it. That's a huge deal. It lowers their income on paper, which makes it so much easier for them to qualify for the housing assistance they need and deserve. So when you put these two changes together, what's the big picture? It's really all about closing a gap. It's one thing for a benefit to be on the book somewhere, but it's a completely different story for people to actually know about it and use it. These new rules are all about building that bridge, connecting veterans directly to the help they've earned.
Okay, so we've seen the direct support for veterans, which is a fantastic and crucial piece of this whole thing. But the law doesn't stop there. It also zooms out to look at the bigger system. And that brings us to our next section, which is all about bringing a new level of accountability to the powerful agencies that run the housing market.
Yeah, this is a big one. This law is basically dialing up the accountability in Washington to a whole new level. We're talking about the heads of all the major federal housing agencies, HUD, Ginnie Mae, the FHA, you see the whole list here. They now have to show up and testify before Congress every single year. No more hiding. They're going to have to stand up in public and answer for how their agency is doing.
And speaking of scrutiny, the Federal Housing Administration, the FHA, is really getting put under the microscope. So they have this thing called a capital ratio, which is just a fancy way of saying their financial safety cushion. Now, they have to report how healthy that cushion is to Congress every single month. And if that cushion ever gets too thin, if it drops below the legal minimum, they have to raise a red flag immediately. This is all about creating an early warning system to stop something like the 2008 crisis from happening again.
So you might be thinking, why does all this paperwork and reporting actually matter? Well, it's pretty simple. It's that early warning system we just talked about. The idea is that if you demand constant, transparent updates, you can spot problems way earlier. You can protect taxpayer money and hopefully, just hopefully, keep the entire market from going off the rails. All right, let's move on to Section 3, home appraisals. Now, if you've ever bought or refinanced a house, you know this part of the process can be, pretty stressful, right? It can be confusing and feel totally out of your hands. This new law is trying to change that, to make the whole thing a lot more fair and transparent.
Just imagine this for a second. You get your appraisal report, you open it up, and the number just seems wrong, like way off. A bad appraisal can completely sink a sale or a refinance. And before this law, trying to challenge it was a total mess. The rules were unclear and they were different everywhere.
So what's the fix? Well, the law now gives homeowners a clear right to fight back. If you believe that appraisal is wrong, you can now formally request what's called a reconsideration of value. And that's not just a suggestion. It means your lender is now required by law to have a clear formal process for taking a second look. That's a huge shift in power.
But it doesn't even stop there. The law also kicks off a study into a really kind of radical idea. What if there was a public database of all home appraisals? Whoa, that would be a total game changer for sure.
But, as you can imagine, it brings up some massive questions. You can see them here. Is it even possible? Who would run it? And the big one, how on earth do you manage all the privacy and security risks? Balancing transparency with privacy, that's the million-dollar question they have to answer.
But look, if they can figure it out, the potential is just enormous. A database like this could shine a huge spotlight on how homes are valued. It would give researchers and regulators the tools they need to spot trends, to find patterns of bias, and to start building an appraisal system that's actually fair for everybody.
Okay, we're heading into our final section, and this one is all about looking ahead, because this law isn't just about putting out fires today, it's also about planting the seeds for a healthier housing market tomorrow.
So what the law does is it commissions 4 huge new studies to get answers to some of the toughest questions in housing. We're talking about big stuff, like why is it so hard for middle-income families to find a place to live? What's the deal with this complex land ownership issue? How many people are living near hazardous waste sites? It's all about gathering the hard data so we can finally make smarter policies.
Now let me just quickly explain that one term you saw, heirs property, because it's a really big deal, but not a lot of people know about it. Basically, it's land that's been passed down in a family, sometimes for generations, but without a formal will or any clear legal paperwork. As you can imagine, this creates a ton of instability, and tragically, it often leads to families losing land that's been theirs forever. This study is trying to figure out just how big this problem is and what we can do about it.
And look, these studies aren't just for sitting on a shelf. The entire point is to stop guessing what the problems are and to start building real solutions based on actual solid evidence.
And really, that's the most important thing to take away from this section. In a way, it's the government admitting, hey, we don't have all the answers. It's a humble, but really smart approach. Let's truly understand these deep, long-standing problems first, before we jump in and try to fix them.
So there you have it. New rules for vets and homeowners, a whole lot more oversight for government agencies, and brand new research to guide the future. This law is, without a doubt, a major effort to change the U.S. housing market, but it leaves us with the biggest question of all. Will it actually be enough? Will this finally build a housing system that truly works for everyone? I guess only time will tell.